Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. Now, there's a few things that you guys can do to help our channel grow. That is liking, subscribing, hitting the bell for notifications, but most importantly, sharing the content. I want to say thank you to all of our subscribers. You've been knocking it out of the park. And I want to say welcome to all of our new subscribers. It's because of you guys that I have a voice and a reach, because YouTube is downranking our content. There is no doubt about it. Just go look at the view total from the video I did 2 videos ago pertaining to the coronavirus, titled "This is Biological and Economic Warfare." It was definitely the title that got us downvoted, but this is the kind of content that I'm going to do, so be it. Now, this is a later video in the day because I wanted some news to develop about the coronavirus, and the news has definitely started to die down as far as the information they're releasing. But that really doesn't matter because we all know that information is pretty much nonsense to begin with, and I want to point to Iran for clear indicators that this virus has spread to countries that we're unaware of, and not only that, these countries are not reporting the cases to the rest of the world. The reason I know this is because Iran announced that they had 2 cases in their country earlier this week, and in the same day, they announced that they had 2 deaths inside of their country. North Korea, right, they have announced 0 cases of contagion. That's impossible with the porous border that they have in between China, okay? It's just impossible. Now, you have to realize that they are not testing anybody for this disease that is not clinically ill, which means they haven't been presented symptoms to a doctor, etc., etc. This is inside China. Now, North Korea said that they've been giving out tests and everything. However, we know that these tests are unreliable as all hell. And if a country like Japan and South Korea have already started to see a vast influx of cases, especially South Korea over the past couple of days with 86 new cases, there's something going on that they do not want us to know. And I honestly believe that this thing is far more easily communicable between people than they are letting on. And I believe that it can also survive for a lot longer period outside of human incubation than they're letting on, as well as the amount of asymptomatic carriers existing is probably vastly more than what they are letting on, because, as I have said, they are not testing anybody who's not presenting symptoms or who hasn't come in direct contact with a carrier. Which means you could be sick, you could be giving the disease to hundreds of people, you could be a super carrier like we just saw in South Korea and in Vietnam, infecting over 30 people, and not even know that you have the disease, okay? And this becomes very problematic when we look into what the hell just happened with the Diamond Princess cruise ship. I told you guys 2 videos ago that letting those people off of that ship and sending them home was the absolute worst thing that you could have done if you were trying to quarantine this thing. And from the procedures that were being taken on that ship, according to the Japanese doctor who's now whistleblowing about the way that the quarantines were simply not even implemented in the simplest manner on that ship, just goes to prove even more that it was more than likely a case study as to how the epidemiology of this virus works, how it transmits between people. They wanted to know the R0 rate in a confined area, etc., etc., etc. And once they got the information they needed, right after the 14-day incubation period, they decided, hey, let's let these people off of the ship. And not only that, they let people off of the ship that are more than likely asymptomatic, and they're sending them home. They're letting them on planes. And what's happening is, if you're asymptomatic, you don't have a high viral load, so you're not going to test positive even if they do test you. And let's just be honest, the effectiveness of these test kits are not very accurate to begin with. Some people are saying that there's as much of a 23 to 25% false negative and false positive rate from these test kits. So with all that being said, I highly suggest you go watch the video of the Japanese doctor who was on the ship for 6 hours. And he was kicked off of the Diamond Princess because he was calling them to task on all their bullshit and the simple quarantine procedures that they weren't doing, such as they were asking people that were inside their cabins to write down their needs and wants on a list and pass it under the door. And instead of taking that piece of paper, reading it, and putting it onto a tablet or something, right, they would actually bring that piece of paper and give it to 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 different people. It would go back to the people in the cabin. They would write on it again, and they'd send it back out, potentially spreading the virus all over the entire ship. Now, if you were trying to contain this and you were a human being with a decent conscience for even your own safety, would you allow these kind of quarantine breaches to take place? The simple answer to that question is no. And then you have to ask yourself, what kind of logic is there to allow this quarantine that didn't even take place on the ship to not take place after you let them off of the ship? It's just a continuous cycle of allowing this thing to take one more step down the road before we get out ahead of it, and they're purposely not getting out ahead of it. We're being string-fed this nonsense from the media over and over and over again, when in fact North Korea is doing a better job informing their public about how to protect themselves. It's a sad state of affairs, my friend. That's your coronavirus update for the day. Please like, share, subscribe. Donations can be made at paypal.me/morlogmorningdigest, and I'll talk to you guys soon.